The sweet potato casserole almost slipped from my hands when my 8-year-old grandson Isaiah looked up at me with those bright, innocent eyes and said, "Grandma, are you enjoying the beach house I made Daddy give you? I told him you needed it because you're always saying how much you miss the ocean." The whole table went silent. My son Corey's face turned red. His wife Bianca choked on her wine, sputtering and coughing like she'd swallowed glass. My daughter Vanessa stopped mid-reach for the mac and cheese. Even my brother Raymond froze with his fork halfway to his mouth. "What beach house, baby?" I asked Isaiah gently, my heart starting to pound. I bent down to his level, looking into those sweet eyes that had no idea what bomb he'd just dropped on Thanksgiving dinner. Isaiah smiled wider, so proud of himself. "The one by the water, Remember, Mommy? You said we finally got Daddy to send Grandma all that money for the beach house. You said she'd be so happy there, and we wouldn't have to worry about her anymore." The silence that followed was so thick you could cut it with a knife. I watched Bianca's face drain of all color. She wasn't choking anymore. She was frozen, her eyes darting between me, Corey, and little Isaiah like a trapped animal looking for an escape route. I stood up slowly, feeling every one of my 72 years in my bones. "Sweetheart," I said, keeping my voice as steady as possible. "I don't live in any beach house. I live in my same little rental apartment on Mason Street, the one with the leaky faucet I'm always calling Mr. Patterson about." Corey's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. "Ma, How much?" I interrupted, looking straight at my son. "How much money did you send for this beach house I supposedly bought?" Before anyone could answer, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out with shaking hands. It was a text from my best friend Dorothy, who was supposed to be here but had the flu. "Girl, you sitting down? Check your bank account, now." Before we continue, please drop a comment if you've ever experienced something like this. We'd love to hear your story, and subscribe to the channel to help us grow. Let me take you back to the beginning, to help you understand how I ended up standing in my own dining room, discovering my own son had been robbed blind while my daughter-in-law smiled in my face every Sunday at church. My name is Loretta Mae Henderson, and for 72 years I've lived what most folks would call a decent life. I raised 2 children after my husband Gerald passed when they were just 10 and 12, worked 35 years as a nurse at County General, put both my babies through college, and retired 5 years ago with just enough to keep my head above water. Nothing fancy, but I never went hungry, and I always had a roof over my head. My son Corey was always my gentle child. Smart as a whip, graduated top of his class in engineering. When he got that job at Morrison Tech Solutions making 6 figures, I cried for a week straight. My baby had made it. He was going to have the life I never could give him. For years it was good. Corey would visit every Sunday, take me to church, stay for dinner. We'd laugh and talk about everything under the sun. My daughter Vanessa lived 2 hours away with her family, but Corey was my rock, my weekly dose of joy. Then he met Bianca. Now I'm not one to judge. The Lord knows I've made my share of mistakes. But when Corey first brought Bianca to Sunday dinner 3 years ago, something in my spirit whispered, "Watch this one." She was beautiful, no doubt about that. Tall, well-dressed, spoke with that polished way that made everything sound like a business presentation. She worked in marketing, she said, for a high-end fashion brand. "Mrs. Henderson," she'd said, shaking my hand with a grip that felt more like a business deal than a greeting, "Corey has told me so much about you. I absolutely love what you've done with this cozy little place." Cozy little place. Like my 1-bedroom apartment was something to be ashamed of. But Corey was glowing, happier than I'd seen him since his daddy died. So I smiled and said, "Welcome. Baby, any friend of Corey's is family here." 6 months later, they were engaged. The wedding was a blur of expensive flowers and a venue I know cost more than I made in 2 years of nursing. Bianca's parents were there, draped in designer labels, looking down their noses at our side of the church. But my boy was happy. And isn't that what matters? That's what I told myself anyway. The changes started slow, like water eroding stone. First, Corey missed a Sunday dinner. Then 2. Then he'd show up, but couldn't stay long. "Bianca's got this thing," he'd say. Or, "We've got plans with Bianca's parents." Always Bianca this, Bianca that. My sister Dorothy would sit with me on those lonely Sunday evenings. "That girl's got her hooks in him deep," she'd say, shaking her head. "I've seen it before. She's separating him from his people." "Now, Dorothy," I'd say, "let's not jump to conclusions. Newly married folks need their time together." But Dorothy was right more than she was wrong about people. When Isaiah was born, my heart about burst with joy. My first grandbaby. I rushed to the hospital with flowers and that little blue blanket I'd been crocheting for months. But when I got to the room, Bianca's mother was already there, holding the baby, and Bianca looked at my flowers like I'd brought her weeds. "Oh, Mrs. Henderson," she said with that tight smile. "We weren't expecting anyone else today. We're trying to keep things intimate, you know. Family only." Family only. Like I wasn't family. Corey looked uncomfortable, standing there in the corner, but he didn't say a word. Not one word to defend his own mother. I left those flowers at the nurse's station and cried all the way home. Over the next year, I saw my grandson maybe once every 2 months if I was lucky. Always had to call first. Always had to schedule it like a business appointment. Bianca would hover during every visit, finding reasons to cut things short. "Oh, Isaiah needs his nap," or "We have a thing with my parents." Then, about 8 months ago, Corey showed up at my door unannounced, just like the old days. My heart leaped with hope. "Ma," he said, coming inside and sitting heavily on my worn couch. He looked tired, older than his 38 years. "I need to talk to you about something important." "Baby, what's wrong?" I sat next to him, reaching for his hand like I did when he was little and had scraped his knee. "It's about your living situation," he said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Bianca and I have been talking, and we're worried about you here. This neighborhood isn't what it used to be, and this apartment. Ma, the pipes are always breaking. The heat barely works in winter. You deserve better." My heart warmed despite my confusion. "Corey, I'm fine here. I've been in this place for 20 years. "That's exactly the problem." He squeezed my hand. "Ma, you worked so hard your whole life. You deserve to enjoy your retirement somewhere nice, somewhere peaceful." "What are you saying?" "We want to help you buy a place. A real home. We've been looking at these beautiful beach houses down in Gulf Shores. Small, manageable, but right on the water. You always talked about how much you loved the ocean when we'd visit Aunt Clara in Charleston, remember?" I did remember. Gerald and I had dreamed of retiring by the water someday. But life had other plans. "Corey, baby, I can't afford—" "That's just it, Ma. You don't have to. I've been blessed in my career. Really blessed. Bianca and I talked about it, and we want to do this for you. Consider it payback for everything you did for me." Tears filled my eyes. Maybe I'd been wrong about Bianca. Maybe she did have a good heart. "Corey, that's too much. I can't accept—" "Please, Ma, let us do this. Let me take care of you for once." "How much are we talking about?" He shifted uncomfortably. "The places we're looking at are around $350,000. But don't worry about that. I'll handle everything. I just need you to trust me." $350,000. My hands shook just thinking about that kind of money. "Corey, that's your future, your savings." "It's our decision, Ma. Bianca's completely on board. Actually, it was her idea." That should have been my first warning bell. But I was so touched, so hopeful that maybe things were going to get better, that I pushed aside my doubts. "Okay," I said finally. "If you're sure." He hugged me tight. "I'm sure, Ma. You're going to love it. Just give me a few weeks to handle all the paperwork and logistics. You know how complicated real estate can be. Do you need anything from me to sign papers or? No, I'll handle everything. It'll be a surprise. Just start thinking about what furniture you want to keep and what you want to donate. We'll get you moved in before you know it. He left that day with a kiss on my cheek, and I felt lighter than I had in months. My son loved me. My daughter-in-law wasn't the villain I'd worried she might be. Everything was going to be okay. A week later, Corey called. "Ma, I'm going to need your bank information to set up the transfer for the house purchase. Just your account and routing numbers so I can make sure everything goes through smoothly." I gave them to him without hesitation. He was my son, my blood. Another week passed, then another. Every time I called to ask about the house, Corey said the same thing. "Soon, Ma, just working through some legal stuff. These things take time." Then the calls became less frequent. One Sunday, I called to invite them to church like always. Bianca answered. "Oh, Mrs. Henderson, we're so busy these days. Corey's working on a huge project. I'm sure you understand." "I was calling about the house," I said. "It's been almost 2 months. Everything's fine." Her voice was sharp, almost defensive. "Corey's handling it. You just need to be patient." Something in her tone made my stomach drop, but I told myself I was being paranoid. Then Dorothy called me 3 weeks ago. "Loretta, you need to come to my house, now." When I got there, she sat me down with a cup of tea and pulled out her laptop. "My nephew works in IT at Morrison Tech. He heard something about Corey today and thought I should know." "What is it?" "Corey's been missing a lot of work lately, and when he is there, he seems stressed out of his mind. My nephew said he heard Corey on the phone in the parking lot, arguing with someone about money, saying he didn't have any more to give." My blood ran cold. "Dorothy, what are you saying?" "I'm saying you need to check your bank account, right now." With shaking hands, I logged into my account on Dorothy's computer. The balance made me gasp. I had $247 in checking. My savings account showed $18. "That can't be right," I whispered. I had over $45,000 in savings. My retirement fund, my emergency money. Dorothy's face was grim. "Keep looking." I checked the transaction history. Transfer after transfer to Corey's account. Small ones at first, 1,000 here, 2,000 there. Then bigger ones, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. All labeled house fund or real estate investment. The room started spinning. He said $350,000 for the house. He said he was handling it. I only gave him my account information a few weeks ago. Look at the dates, Loretta. The transfers started 4 months ago. Long before Corey had come to see me about the house. Long before he'd asked for my account information. "How did he—" "You set him up as an authorized user on your accounts when you had that surgery 3 years ago, remember? So he could handle your bills while you recovered." I had forgotten. Completely forgotten. And Corey had been using that access to drain me dry while lying to my face about a beach house that never existed. Or did it? That's when I started digging deeper. I called a friend who worked at a title company, asked her to search for any property purchases in my name or Corey's over the past 6 months. Nothing under my name. But under Corey's name? A beach house in Gulf Shores, purchased 4 months ago for $365,000, paid in cash. My son had bought a beach house, all right, but not for me, for himself and Bianca. I sat in Dorothy's house and cried until I had no tears left. Then something else took over. Not sadness. Something harder, something sharp. "What are you going to do?" Dorothy asked. "I'm going to Thanksgiving dinner," I said quietly. "And I'm going to smile, and I'm going to wait. Because if there's one thing I learned in 72 years, it's that liars always trip over their own tongues eventually." Dorothy nodded slowly. "You need a lawyer." "I know, but first, I need the truth. I need to hear Corey say it to my face." That was 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks of pretending I didn't know, 3 weeks of accepting Bianca's invitation to Thanksgiving dinner with a sweet voice and a grateful heart. 3 weeks of planning. I didn't expect little Isaiah to be the one to expose them. Children are like that. Innocent truth-tellers who don't understand the weight of the secrets they're spilling. Now, standing in my son's dining room, watching Bianca's face cycle through denial, fear, and calculation, I knew the time had come. "Corey," I said softly, "I think you and I need to have a conversation. A real one this time." Bianca stood up so fast her chair fell backward. "Isaiah, baby, why don't you go play with your toys upstairs?" "But I want to tell Grandma about the beach house," Isaiah protested. "Mommy, you said she'd be so happy." "Isaiah!" Bianca's voice cracked like a whip. "Upstairs, now!" My grandson's face crumpled, confused by his mother's sudden anger. Vanessa quickly stood up. "Come on, Isaiah. Let's go find those toys, okay? Maybe Auntie Vanessa can help you build that Lego set." After they left, the 5 of us remaining, me, Corey, Bianca, my brother Raymond, and my nephew Marcus, stood in tense silence. Raymond spoke first, his voice low and dangerous. "Corey, what did that boy just say?" Corey couldn't look at any of us. His hands were shaking, but Bianca had recovered her composure. She smoothed her designer dress and lifted her chin. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. Isaiah is just confused. You know how children mix up stories." "Cut the crap, Bianca." My voice came out harder than I intended. "I know about the house. I know about all of it." The mask cracked again just for a second. Then she tried a different approach. Tears. "Mrs. Henderson, please, you don't understand. Corey was just trying to..." "To what? Steal from his own mother?" Raymond moved closer to Corey. $45,000, Corey? Your mama's life savings?" Corey's head snapped up. "How did you..." "Checked my account this morning, baby," I said softly. "Right before I came here. Saw every single transfer, every single lie." My son's face crumpled. For a moment, he looked like the little boy who'd cried in my arms when his daddy died. But then Bianca put her hand on his arm, and I watched him transform back into this stranger I didn't recognize. "The house is an investment, Ma," he said, his voice stronger now, rehearsed. "We were going to sell it in a few years and pay you back double." "Don't," I interrupted. "Don't insult me with more lies. You bought that house for you and Bianca. You let me sit in my rental apartment with $265 to my name while you vacationed at a beach house bought with my retirement money." "We were going to tell you," Bianca said, but her voice lacked conviction. "We just needed more time." "Time for what? For me to die so you wouldn't have to face what you did?" The words hung in the air like smoke. Vanessa had come back downstairs, and she was standing in the doorway with her phone in her hand, recording everything. "Vanessa, put that away," Corey said sharply. "No," Vanessa replied, her voice shaking with rage. "I want every word of this documented. I want proof of what you did to Mama." Bianca's eyes narrowed as she looked at the phone. Something shifted in her expression, from defensive to calculating. "Corey, we don't have to explain ourselves to anyone. It's our money now. What are they going to do? Sue us? With what? She doesn't have money for a lawyer." The coldness in her voice made everyone in the room freeze. This was it. The real Bianca, stripped of all pretense. Raymond took a step toward her, but I held up my hand. "No. Let her talk. Let her show us exactly who she is." Bianca smiled, and it was the ugliest thing I'd ever seen. "You want the truth, Mrs. Henderson? Fine. Here's the truth. Corey's money is our money. What he gives you, what he doesn't give you, that's our decision, not yours. You had your chance to build wealth in your life. It's not our fault you stayed poor." Corey looked horrified. "Bianca, stop." But she was on a roll now, years of hidden contempt pouring out like poison. "We've been supporting your lifestyle for years. Those Sunday dinners? That cost us time and money we could have spent building our future. You think we wanted to waste our weekends playing happy family? We have real lives, real ambitions. And yes, we bought a beach house. Because we deserve it. Because Corey works hard and deserves to enjoy his success without being dragged down by... The slap came out of nowhere. Vanessa's hand connected with Bianca's face with a crack that echoed through the room. "You evil witch!" Vanessa hissed. "That's our mother. Our mother who raised us alone. Our mother who worked double shifts to put your husband through college. Our mother who... Vanessa!" I grabbed my daughter's arm before she could do more damage. "Stop. She's not worth it." Bianca held her face, tears streaming down her cheeks now. Real ones this time. But they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of rage. "You assaulted me," she said, her voice deadly quiet. "I'm calling the police." She pulled out her phone, but Corey grabbed it from her hand. "No, no police. This is family business." "Family?" Bianca laughed bitterly. "Your family is nothing but a burden. I told you years ago we needed to cut them off, but you were too weak. Well, I'm done. I'm done playing nice. I'm done pretending to care. And I'm done with these Sunday dinner expectations and guilt trips about time with Isaiah. You want to see your grandson? Take us to court. Oh, wait. You can't afford a lawyer, can you?" The room went silent again. Even Corey looked shocked at what his wife had just said. I felt something crack open inside my chest. Not my heart breaking, but something older and fiercer. Something that had been asleep for too long. "Get out of my son's house," I said quietly. "Get out before I forget I'm a Christian woman and forget all the teachings about turning the other cheek." Bianca laughed. "Your son's house? This is my house. I'm not going anywhere." "You're the guest here, Mrs. Henderson. Maybe it's time you remembered that." That's when my phone buzzed again. I pulled it out expecting another message from Dorothy. But it wasn't Dorothy this time. It was my bank alert notification. A deposit had just been made to my account. $50,000. I stared at the screen, my mind not quite processing what I was seeing. Then another notification came through. An email this time from a law firm I'd never heard of, Bennett and Associates. I opened it with shaking hands and read, "Mrs. Henderson, your claim has been filed. Evidence has been submitted. Emergency hearing scheduled for Monday 9 a.m. All documents attached. Call us when you're ready to proceed. Attorney Jessica Bennett." My head spun. What claim? What evidence? What hearing? I hadn't filed anything. I hadn't even contacted a lawyer yet. That's when I noticed the CC on the email. The message had also been sent to Detective Morris Campbell, Financial Crimes Unit. I looked up from my phone to find everyone staring at me. "Ma?" Corey's voice was small, scared. "What is it?" I didn't answer him. Instead, I looked at Bianca, whose face had gone from smug to suspicious. "Who did you send that money to?" she demanded. "I didn't send anyone any money," I said slowly, my mind racing. "But it seems like someone sent money to me, and someone filed a legal claim on my behalf, and someone..." I looked back at my phone as another email came through. "Sent all of this to the police." The color drained from Bianca's face. "The police? For what? This is a family matter." "Elder financial abuse is a crime, Bianca," Raymond said, pulling out his own phone. "Felony crime. And when the victim is over 65 and the perpetrator is a family member who had legal access to their accounts." He looked at Corey with disgust. "That's prison time." "Prison?" Corey's voice cracked. No, this is all a misunderstanding. I was going to pay her back." "With what money?" I asked. "With my money that you already spent on your beach house?" Another notification. This time it was a text from an unknown number. "Stay calm. Help is on the way. You're not alone anymore. They can't hurt you now. A friend." I looked around the room, trying to understand what was happening. Who had done all this? Who had filed a claim for me? Who had sent me $50,000? And why did I have a feeling this Thanksgiving dinner was about to get a whole lot more complicated? The doorbell rang, cutting through the tense silence like a knife. We all froze, staring at each other like children caught with their hands in the cookie jar. "Don't answer it," Bianca hissed at Corey. "Don't you dare answer that door." But Raymond was already moving. He walked straight to the front door and pulled it open. 2 police officers stood on the porch, along with a black woman in her 40s wearing a sharp navy suit and carrying a leather briefcase. "Good evening," the woman said with a warm but professional smile. "I'm attorney Jessica Bennett. I'm looking for Mrs. Loretta Mae Henderson." My legs felt weak. "That's me." She walked into the house like she owned it, the officers following behind her. "Mrs. Henderson, I apologize for the dramatic entrance, but we needed to move quickly. May we speak privately?" "Anything you have to say to my mother, you can say in front of all of us," Vanessa said, moving to stand beside me. Jessica looked around the room, her eyes settling on Corey and Bianca with something close to contempt. "Very well. Mrs. Henderson, 3 weeks ago, my firm was contacted by someone who wished to remain anonymous for now. They provided us with extensive documentation of financial elder abuse, bank records, text messages, recorded phone conversations, property records, and witness statements. They also provided a retainer fee for our services." My head was spinning. Who? Who contacted you? As I said, they wish to remain anonymous until the proper time. What I can tell you is that they care deeply about your well-being and have been watching this situation unfold for months. They finally decided to take action. One of the police officers stepped forward. He was an older black man with kind eyes that reminded me of Gerald. "Mrs. Henderson, I'm Detective Morris Campbell with the Financial Crimes Unit. Based on the evidence Attorney Bennett provided, we've opened an investigation into potential elder financial abuse and fraud. We need to ask you some questions." "This is harassment!" Bianca's voice went shrill. "You can't just barge into our home on Thanksgiving." "Actually, ma'am, we can," Detective Campbell said calmly. "When there's evidence of ongoing financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, we can and do act immediately." He turned back to me. "Mrs. Henderson, did you authorize Corey Henderson to withdraw $45,000 from your savings account over the past 4 months?" "No," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I gave him access to my accounts 3 years ago when I had surgery." I forgot he still had it. He told me he was buying me a beach house, but he never asked permission to take that money. "And did you receive any of the proceeds from the property purchase in Gulf Shores?" "No, sir. I didn't even know the house was purchased until today." Detective Campbell nodded and pulled out a small notebook. "Mr. Henderson, I'm going to need you to come down to the station to answer some questions." Corey looked like he might pass out. "I want a lawyer." "That's your right," the detective said. "But let me be clear. We have bank records showing systematic withdrawals from your mother's account. We have text messages between you and your wife discussing how to handle your mother's questions about the money. We have property records showing you purchased a beach house with cash during the exact time period when your mother's account was being drained. This isn't going to go away." Bianca grabbed Corey's arm. "Don't say anything, not one word. We're calling your father's lawyer right now." "Your father-in-law's lawyer specializes in corporate law," Jessica said smoothly. "You're going to need a criminal defense attorney, and a good one." "Criminal?" Corey's voice cracked. "Ma, please tell them this is all a misunderstanding. Tell them I was going to pay you back." "Were you?" I asked, looking at my son. Really looking at him. "Were you really going to pay me back, Corey? Or were you just going to keep lying to me until I had nothing left?" He opened his mouth, but no words came out. The second police officer, a young Latina woman, spoke up. "We also need to address the minor child in the home. Is Isaiah Henderson here?" My heart clenched. "Yes, he's upstairs. Why?" "Given the hostile environment and the ongoing investigation, we need to ensure the child's well-being. Is there another family member who can take him tonight?" "Absolutely not!" Bianca shrieked. "You are not taking my son!" "Ma'am, calm down," Detective Campbell said firmly. "We're not taking anyone. We're asking if there's a family member who can provide a stable environment while we sort this out." "He can stay with me," Vanessa said immediately. "I have a spare room. He knows me." "Over my dead body," Bianca spat. "You just assaulted me in front of witnesses. You think I'm letting my son anywhere near you?" Jessica cleared her throat. "About that assault claim, Mrs. Bianca Henderson, are you aware that this entire conversation has been recorded?" She pulled out a small device from her briefcase. "Audio and video, actually, from multiple angles. Would you like me to play back the part where you told Mrs. Henderson she was poor, that her family was a burden, and that she couldn't afford to see her own grandson?" Bianca's face went white. "That's illegal. You can't record someone without their permission. Actually, in this state, one-party consent is sufficient for recording, and Mrs. Henderson gave us permission to place recording devices in her purse and on her person 3 weeks ago." Jessica smiled. "You know, when she first came to our office after discovering the theft." My mouth fell open. "I did?" Jessica's smile widened. "Don't you remember, Mrs. Henderson? You came to our office on November 8th. We had a long conversation about your situation. You were quite distressed." I had never been to her office. I'd never even heard of Jessica Bennett until tonight. But she was looking at me with such intensity, such meaning in her eyes, that I understood. Someone had gone to that office on my behalf. Someone had set all this in motion. "Oh," I said slowly. "Yes, I remember now. And you authorized us to take whatever legal action necessary to protect your interests and recover your stolen funds." "I did." Corey looked between us, confusion and fear warring on his face. "Ma, what's going on? What did you do?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed again. Another text from the unknown number. "The recording devices were in your purse. The one you brought to every Sunday dinner for the past month. The one Bianca so kindly offered to hang up for you each time, never knowing what was inside. Every conversation, every insult, every plan they made, all recorded. You're welcome. A friend." My hands started shaking. Someone had been watching. Someone had been planning this. Someone had been protecting me while I was completely oblivious. "Mrs. Henderson, are you all right?" Detective Campbell asked with concern. "I need to sit down," I whispered. Raymond helped me to the couch. Vanessa rushed to get me water. The detective and Jessica exchanged glances. "Perhaps we should continue this at the station," Detective Campbell said. "Mrs. Henderson, you're not in any trouble, but we need to get your full statement, and I think you need some time to process everything." "Wait," I said, finding my voice. "Who hired you? Who paid you? Who's been helping me?" Jessica knelt down beside me, her voice gentle. "They made me promise not to reveal their identity tonight. They said you'll know soon enough, and they wanted to make sure you were safe first before explaining everything. But I can tell you this, they've known you for a long time. They've watched Bianca manipulate your son for years. And they finally had enough when they saw what it was doing to you." Tears streamed down my face. "Someone cares that much?" "Several people, actually," Jessica said softly. "You have more friends than you know, Mrs. Henderson. People who've been watching and documenting everything, waiting for the right moment to help you fight back." I looked at Corey, my baby boy, who was now crying silent tears. "Why?" I asked him. "Why did you do this to me?" He collapsed onto a chair, his head in his hands. I don't know. It started small. Bianca said we needed to save for Isaiah's future. Then it was the house down payment. Then it was investments. She kept saying you wouldn't miss it, that you had more than you needed, that we'd pay you back with interest. And every time I tried to stop, she said I was choosing you over my own wife and child. She made me feel like I had to choose. You did have to choose, I said quietly. And you chose wrong. Bianca laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Oh, please. The martyr act is getting old, Mrs. Henderson. You think you're the victim here? You think you're the only one who sacrificed? I've spent 3 years pretending to like you. 3 years of boring Sunday dinners and your little rental apartment and listening to stories about the good old days when you were young. Do you know how exhausting that was? Then why? I asked, genuinely confused. Why keep coming if you hated it so much? Because I needed Corey to stay close enough to maintain access to your accounts, she shouted. Because I needed you to trust us. Because that money was supposed to be ours eventually anyway, and I just moved up the timeline. The room went completely silent. Even the police officers looked shocked. Jessica slowly stood up, pulling out her phone. Detective Campbell, did you hear that? Every word, he said grimly. Mrs. Brayon. Henderson, Bianca Henderson, you just confessed to conspiracy to commit financial fraud. Bianca's face cycled through several emotions before landing on defiance. So what? It's still family. You can't prove I forced Corey to do anything. He made his own choices. Actually, Jessica said, scrolling through her phone, we have text messages between you and Corey where you explicitly told him how to transfer money without his mother noticing. We have recordings of you telling him to lie about the beach house. We have documentation of you preventing Mrs. Henderson from seeing her grandson as a manipulation tactic. And now we have you admitting your intent on record. She looked up with a smile that could cut glass. You're done. Bianca lunged for Jessica, but the female officer stepped between them. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to calm down. This is insane, Bianca screamed. Corey, say something! Defend me! Defend us! But Corey just sat there, broken, staring at his hands. I can't, he whispered. I can't defend this anymore. What? You're right, he said, looking at his wife for the first time with clear eyes. You're right that I made choices. But you manipulated every single one. You made me feel like caring about my mother was a weakness. You isolated me from my family. You spent 3 years turning me into someone I don't even recognize. He looked at me, tears streaming down his face. Ma, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't give her back her retirement, Raymond said harshly. Sorry doesn't give her back the 3 years you let your wife abuse her. I know, Corey sobbed. I know it doesn't. But I'm going to fix this. I'm going to make this right. How? Vanessa demanded. How are you going to fix this, Corey? He stood up shakily and walked to where Detective Campbell stood. I want to confess. To everything. I want to tell you every detail of what we did, how we did it, and why. I want to cooperate fully with your investigation. Corey, no! Bianca shrieked. Don't you dare! I'm done, Corey said, his voice stronger now. I'm done lying. I'm done being controlled. Detective, I'll tell you everything, but I have one condition. Detective Campbell raised an eyebrow. You're not really in a position to make conditions, son. Please, Corey begged. Just hear me out. I'll cooperate fully, plead guilty to whatever charges you bring, accept whatever sentence the court gives me. But I want my mother to get every penny back, plus interest. The beach house, I'll sign it over to her. Everything. And I want Isaiah protected from all of this. He's innocent. He doesn't deserve to pay for what we did. My heart ached seeing my son like this, finally waking up to what he'd done. But the damage was so deep, so complete. That's between you, your lawyer, and the prosecutor, Detective Campbell said. But cooperation will be noted. Bianca seemed to deflate, all the fight going out of her. She sank onto the couch, her head in her hands. This can't be happening. This can't be real. Oh, it's very real, Jessica said. And it's only going to get worse for you. See, while you were busy spending Mrs. Henderson's retirement money, you forgot something important. You forgot that she worked at County General for 35 years. Do you know how many people that is? How many nurses, doctors, patients, families she helped over those decades? So what? Bianca mumbled. So that hospital has a very active alumni network. And when word got out about what was happening to one of their own, people started paying attention. People started collecting evidence. People started making calls. Jessica walked over to stand in front of Bianca. You picked the wrong woman to victimize. Because while you were busy thinking she was just some poor, powerless old lady, she was surrounded by people who loved her. People who were willing to fight for her when she didn't even know she needed fighting for. My chest felt tight with emotion. County General? Someone from the hospital did all this? Among others, Jessica said mysteriously. But yes, your family there hasn't forgotten you, Mrs. Henderson. I thought about all my years at that hospital, the nurses I'd trained, the doctors I'd worked alongside, the administrators who'd relied on me, the patients whose hands I'd held in their darkest moments. I'd retired and lost touch with most of them, but they hadn't forgotten me? My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a call from a number I did recognize. Dorothy. Girl, are you okay? She asked as soon as I answered. I've been trying to text you, but you weren't answering, and I got worried. Dorothy, did you have something to do with all this? There was a pause, then, not just me, sugar, but yes, I've been documenting everything for months. Every time you called me crying, every time Corey made an excuse, every red flag I saw, I was the one who reached out to some of our old friends from County General. We couldn't just sit by and watch you suffer. Tears blurred my vision. You did this for me? Of course I did. You're my best friend. You've been there for me through everything. My divorce, my cancer scare, raising my grandkids. You think I was going to let your own son rob you blind? Not on my watch. But the money, the $50,000 someone sent to my account. That was a group effort. 12 of us from the hospital, plus some church members, plus a few of your old neighbors who remembered how you used to help everyone. We all pitched in. We figured you'd need it for legal fees and living expenses while this got sorted out. I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. 12 people, plus church members, plus old neighbors, all pooling their money to help me. Dorothy, I can't accept that much money from people. You can and you will, Dorothy said firmly. Consider it a loan if it makes you feel better. Pay us back when you get your money back from Corey. But right now you need resources to fight this battle, and we made sure you have them. I looked around the room at all the people who'd gathered in my son's house on what was supposed to be a peaceful Thanksgiving. The police, the lawyer, my children, my brother, all of them here because somewhere in the background, a network of people who loved me had been working tirelessly to protect me. Thank you, I whispered into the phone. Thank you so much. Thank me when this is over, Dorothy said. Now I'm coming over there. You shouldn't be alone tonight after all this. After I hung up, Jessica handed me a folder. This is a copy of everything we've filed. The civil suit against Corey and Bianca for return of funds, damages, and emotional distress. The criminal complaint we filed with the police. The restraining order preventing them from contacting you or accessing any of your accounts. And this, she pulled out another document, is an emergency custody petition for Isaiah. We're asking the court to grant you temporary custody until this is resolved. What? Bianca jumped up. You can't take my son. We're not taking him, Jessica said calmly. We're protecting him from a toxic environment. The recording devices caught you berating him multiple times for expressing love for his grandmother. They caught you teaching him to lie. They caught you using him as a manipulation tool. A judge is going to hear all of that, Mrs. Henderson. And then a judge is going to decide what's in Isaiah's best interest. No, Bianca said, but her voice lacked conviction. She knew she was beaten. Ma, Corey said quietly, if the court does give you custody of Isaiah, please take care of him. He loves you so much. He talks about you all the time, asks when he can see you. I know I don't deserve to ask you for anything, but please, don't let my mistakes hurt him." Before I could answer, we heard small footsteps on the stairs. Isaiah appeared in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. "Grandma? Why is everyone yelling? Why are there police here?" My heart broke seeing his confused, scared little face. I opened my arms and he ran to me, climbing into my lap like he used to when he was smaller. "It's okay, baby," I murmured, holding him close. "Everything's going to be okay." "Are you mad at me?" he whispered. "Did I say something wrong about the beach house?" "No, sweetheart. You didn't do anything wrong. You told the truth, and that's always the right thing to do." He snuggled closer. "Mommy was mad at me." "Your mommy's just having a hard day. It's not your fault." Detective Campbell cleared his throat. "Mrs. Henderson, we should get going. We need you to come down to the station to give your official statement. It won't take long, but it needs to be done tonight while everything's fresh." "Can my sister go with her?" Raymond asked. "She shouldn't go alone." "Of course. Family support is encouraged." I looked down at Isaiah, who had fallen asleep in my arms, exhausted by all the tension. "What about him?" "I can take him to my house," Vanessa offered. "The kids would love to see their cousin." Bianca started to protest, but one look from the female officer silenced her. As Raymond helped me stand, still holding Isaiah, I looked at Corey one last time. My son. My baby. The child I'd raised alone, sacrificed for, loved with everything in me. "I hope it was worth it," I said softly. "I hope that beach house was worth losing your family." The look of devastation on his face told me he finally understood what he'd truly lost. As we walked toward the door, Jessica touched my arm. "Mrs. Henderson, there's one more thing you should know. The anonymous person who started all this. They asked me to tell you they'll reveal themselves at the hearing on Monday. They said you deserve to thank them in person." "Do you know who it is?" I asked. She smiled. "I do." "And trust me, you're going to be very surprised indeed." We left Corey's house with Isaiah sleeping in Vanessa's arms and 2 police cars following us to the station. As we drove through the dark streets, my phone buzzed one more time. Another text from that unknown number. "Sleep well tonight, Loretta. You're safe now. On Monday, the real battle begins. And this time, you won't be fighting alone. In fact, you're going to discover you never were alone. Some guardian angels just work in the shadows. See you in court. With love, someone who never forgot what you did for them all those years ago." I stared at that message all the way to the police station, trying to figure out who could have written it. Someone from the hospital? An old patient? A former coworker? Someone I'd helped years ago who'd been watching and waiting for a chance to return the favor? Whoever they were, they'd just turned my world upside down in the best possible way. My son had betrayed me, yes, but somewhere out there, someone else had been fighting for me harder than I'd ever fought for myself. And on Monday morning, I was finally going to find out who. Monday morning came faster than I expected. I'd spent the weekend at Vanessa's house with Isaiah, watching him play with his cousins like nothing in the world was wrong. Children have that gift. They can find joy even in the middle of chaos. Saturday night, he'd climbed into bed next to me and whispered, "Grandma, can I live with you? I miss you." Those words broke my heart and mended it at the same time. Now, standing outside the courthouse in my best navy dress, the one I'd worn to Corey's college graduation, I felt my hands shaking. Dorothy stood on one side of me, Vanessa on the other, Raymond just behind us like a wall of protection. Jessica Bennett approached in another sharp suit, this one charcoal gray, carrying 2 briefcases. "Are you ready?" she asked. "As ready as I'll ever be," I said. Is the person who helped me here yet?" Jessica smiled mysteriously. "Oh, they're here. They've been here since 7 this morning, making sure everything was perfect. You'll see them soon enough." We walked through the metal detectors and down the long hallway to courtroom 4B. My heart pounded with every step. Through the courtroom doors, I could see it was already packed. I recognized faces from County General, nurses I'd worked with decades ago, administrators who'd retired before I did, even Dr. Patricia Okoye, who'd been a young resident when I was training her and was now the chief of medicine. They all stood when I entered, a show of solidarity that made tears spring to my eyes. But I still didn't see anyone who looked like they could be my mysterious benefactor. Jessica led me to the plaintiff's table. Across the aisle, Corey sat with a public defender. He couldn't afford his father-in-law's expensive lawyers now. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in 3 days. Bianca sat next to him with her own lawyer, a slick-looking man who kept whispering urgently in her ear. She wouldn't look at me. The bailiff called, "All rise for the Honorable Judge Marion Williams." We all stood as Judge Williams entered, a black woman in her 60s with gray locks and eyes that looked like they'd seen everything and weren't impressed by any of it. She sat, arranged her papers, and looked out over the courtroom with an expression that made me think of my own mother when she was about to lay down the law. "Be seated," she said. "We have several matters before us today. Case number 2025 CV 8847, Henderson versus Henderson, civil suit for return of funds and damages. Case number 2025 CR 3312, the People versus Corey Henderson and Bianca Henderson, criminal charges of elder financial abuse and fraud. And case number 2025 FC 1156, emergency custody petition for Isaiah Henderson, minor child." She looked over her glasses at the packed courtroom. "This is quite the turnout for a Monday morning. Would someone like to explain why I have what appears to be half of County General Hospital in my courtroom?" Jessica stood. "Your Honor, if I may, the supporters here today are witnesses to Mrs. Loretta Henderson's character and are prepared to testify about the impact of the defendant's actions on her life." "I see." Judge Williams turned her attention to me. "Mrs. Henderson, I've reviewed the materials filed by your attorney. Quite thorough. Quite damning, actually. Before we proceed with testimony, I understand there's someone who wishes to address the court? Someone who's been instrumental in bringing this case forward?" Jessica nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. If I may call them now?" "Proceed." Jessica walked to the back of the courtroom and opened the door. A woman entered, and my breath caught in my throat. She was in her early 40s, petite, with warm brown skin and kind eyes. She wore purple scrubs under a long coat and carried herself with quiet confidence. I knew her. I knew that face. But from where? When? She walked to the witness stand, was sworn in, and sat down. Her eyes found mine and she smiled, a smile full of warmth and gratitude and something that looked like love. "Please state your name for the record," Jessica said. "My name is Dr. Aisha Winters. I'm a pediatric oncologist at County General Hospital." Aisha Winters. Aisha Winters. The name tumbled through my mind, trying to connect to a memory. Then it hit me like a lightning bolt. "Oh my God," I whispered. "Little Aisha?" She nodded, tears shining in her eyes. "Yes, Mrs. Henderson. Little Aisha." 28 years ago, a 7-year-old girl named Aisha had come to County General with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. I'd been assigned to her case. Her mother was a single parent working 2 jobs, terrified and exhausted. For 2 years, through chemotherapy and setbacks and treatments that made that little girl so sick, I'd been there. I'd held Aisha when she cried from the pain. I'd sat with her mother during the long nights. I'd used my own money to buy them groceries when I knew they were struggling. I'd advocated for them when the hospital billing department got aggressive. I'd fought to make sure Aisha got every bit of care she needed, regardless of her mother's ability to pay. And when Aisha went into remission, I'd celebrated like she was my own child. "I don't understand," I said, my voice shaking. You did all this? You were my guardian angel? Judge Williams looked confused. Someone want to fill me in? Aisha turned to address the court, her voice strong and clear. 28 years ago, I was a little girl dying of cancer. My mother couldn't afford proper care, couldn't navigate the medical system, didn't know how to fight for me. Mrs. Henderson, Nurse Henderson back then, became our advocate. She went to battle with insurance companies. She worked double shifts to cover costs the hospital tried to bill us for. She brought us food, held my hand during treatments, told me stories to keep me distracted from the pain. Her voice cracked. She saved my life in every way that matters. I was crying now, unable to stop. When I went into remission, Aisha continued, I promised myself that if I grew up, I'd become a doctor. I'd help sick children the way Mrs. Henderson helped me, and I'd never forget what she did for my family. I went to medical school on scholarships, became a pediatric oncologist, and came back to County General. I've been there for 15 years now. She looked directly at me. And 6 months ago, I was having coffee in the cafeteria when I overheard two nurses talking. They were worried about a former nurse, someone named Loretta Henderson, whose son was acting strangely. They mentioned how she didn't come to the hospital alumni events anymore, how they'd heard she was struggling. She wiped her eyes. I started asking questions, started paying attention. I reached out to Dorothy. She nodded at my best friend, and she told me everything. About Corey, about Bianca, about the money disappearing, about you sitting in your apartment alone, wondering why your son had abandoned you. Her voice hardened. I wasn't going to let that stand, not after everything you did for me. So you hired the lawyer? I asked. I did more than that. I contacted everyone I could think of who knew you from the hospital. I organized the fundraising for your legal defense. I hired a private investigator to document Corey and Bianca's activities. I arranged for the recording devices. I coordinated with Dorothy to monitor the situation. She smiled through her tears. You saved my life, Mrs. Henderson. The least I could do was save your dignity and your future. I couldn't speak, couldn't process this. This woman, this doctor, this successful, brilliant woman, had been that sick little girl I'd held 28 years ago? Judge Williams cleared her throat. I could see she was emotional too. Dr. Winters, that's quite a story, but this court deals in facts and evidence. What can you tell me about the case before us? Aisha straightened. Your Honor, over the past 3 months, the private investigator I hired documented over 40 instances of Bianca Henderson making derogatory comments about Mrs. Henderson to her son. We have recordings of Bianca instructing Corey on how to access his mother's accounts without her knowledge. We have evidence of Bianca researching elder financial abuse statutes and how to avoid prosecution for family theft on her computer. We have bank records, property records, and witness testimony from multiple sources. Jessica stood and handed a thick folder to the bailiff, who passed it to Judge Williams. Your Honor, this is all the evidence Dr. Winters referenced, along with additional documentation of the psychological manipulation tactics used against both Mrs. Henderson and Corey Henderson. Judge Williams began reading, her expression growing darker with each page. After several minutes, she looked up at Bianca. Mrs. Bianca Henderson, I've read some manipulative schemes in my 20 years on the bench, but this is truly something else. You systematically isolated your husband from his family, manipulated him into stealing from his own mother, purchased property with stolen funds, and then had the audacity to mock the victim in her face. Bianca's lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client... Sit down, Judge Williams snapped. I'm not done. Mrs. Bianca Henderson, stand up. Bianca stood shakily. According to these recordings, you told Mrs. Henderson, and I quote, "Your family is nothing but a burden, and you can't afford to see your own grandson." You also told her she stayed poor and deserved no sympathy. Is that correct? Bianca's voice was barely a whisper. I was upset. Answer the question. Did you say those things? Yes. And did you research how to avoid prosecution for financial elder abuse while actively committing financial elder abuse? Bianca's lawyer tried again. Your Honor, that search history could have been what? Coincidence? Judge Williams's voice could have cut steel. The searches were made on the same days as major transfers from Mrs. Henderson's account. Sit down, counselor, before I hold you in contempt for insulting my intelligence. She turned to Corey. Mr. Corey Henderson, stand. Corey stood, his whole body trembling. I understand you want to cooperate with this investigation. Is that still true? Yes, Your Honor. I want to confess to everything and accept full responsibility. Do you understand that by confessing, you're waiving certain rights and opening yourself to criminal prosecution? Yes, ma'am. I understand. I just want to make this right. Judge Williams studied him for a long moment. Let me tell you something, young man. I've been on this bench for 2 decades. I've seen every kind of family betrayal you can imagine. But what you did to your mother? That's a special kind of cruelty. That woman raised you alone after your father died. She worked herself to the bone to put you through college, and you repaid her by stealing her retirement and buying yourself a beach house. I know, Corey sobbed. I know, and I'm so sorry. I don't know how I became this person. I don't know how I let Bianca convince me. Stop, Judge Williams interrupted. Stop blaming your wife for your choices. Yes, she manipulated you. Yes, she's a piece of work. But you're a grown man. You knew what you were doing was wrong. You knew your mother didn't have a beach house. You knew you were lying to her every time she asked about it. You chose to do those things. Yes, ma'am. The only question is whether you choose to be better now, whether you choose to actually make amends instead of just saying sorry. She looked at her papers again. Mr. Henderson, you've offered to sign over the beach house to your mother, is that correct? Yes, Your Honor, and I'll pay back every penny I took with interest, even if it takes me the rest of my life. That property is currently valued at $365,000. Mrs. Henderson lost $45,000 from her accounts. That leaves $320,000 in equity, which will go to Mrs. Henderson as additional damages for emotional distress and punitive measures. She made a note. The property will be transferred to Mrs. Henderson immediately. You will also set up a payment plan to compensate for the 3 years of emotional trauma you caused. I'm setting that at an additional $100,000 to be paid at $2,000 per month until satisfied. Corey nodded, still crying. Whatever you say, Your Honor. Judge Williams turned her attention to me. Mrs. Henderson, I'm going to rule in your favor on every count of your civil suit. The property transfers to you immediately. You're also awarded $50,000 in attorney fees and court costs. As for the criminal charges, she looked at the prosecutor. I'm recommending a plea deal. Mr. Corey Henderson will plead guilty to 1 count of elder financial abuse, receive 3 years probation, and be required to complete 500 hours of community service at a facility serving elderly populations. He'll learn exactly what damage his actions could have caused. What about Bianca? Raymond called out from behind me. Judge Williams's expression turned icy. Mrs. Bianca Henderson, you're looking at multiple felony counts. Conspiracy to commit fraud, elder financial abuse as an accessory, and, based on these recordings, financial coercion. Unlike your husband, you've shown no remorse. You researched how to avoid prosecution, which shows premeditation. You actively prevented a grandmother from seeing her grandson as a manipulation tactic. You mocked your victim to her face. She paused. I'm denying you bail and remanding you to custody pending trial. Bailiff, take her into custody. What? Bianca screamed as the bailiff moved toward her. You can't do this! I have a child! I have a son! You should have thought about that before you committed multiple felonies, Judge Williams said coldly. Your trial date will be set within 60 days. As they led Bianca away in handcuffs, still screaming about injustice, I felt something release in my chest. Not joy. I couldn't feel joy watching my grandson's mother being arrested. But relief. Relief that it was over. Relief that someone in power had seen the truth and acted on it. Now, Judge Williams said, let's address the custody matter. Mrs. Henderson, Dr. P. Winters has offered to provide you with financial support if you need it to care for your grandson. The court is granting you temporary custody of Isaiah Henderson while his parents sort out their legal issues. Mr. Henderson, you'll be allowed supervised visitation once a month, pending your completion of a parenting course and family therapy. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor, Corey whispered. Mrs. Henderson, do you accept custody of your grandson? I stood on shaking legs. Yes, Your Honor, I do. Isaiah, who'd been waiting with Vanessa outside the courtroom, was brought in. When he saw me, he ran straight into my arms. Grandma, the lady said I get to live with you. Is that true? Yes, baby, I said, holding him tight. You're coming home with me. To the beach house? Everyone in the courtroom went silent. Judge Williams leaned forward. Mrs. Henderson, about that beach house. It's yours now. You could sell it, keep it, do whatever you want with it. What do you think you'll do? I looked down at Isaiah's hopeful face, looked at Corey, broken and crying, looked at Aisha, the woman who'd orchestrated my salvation, looked at Dorothy and all the people from County General who'd pooled their money to help me. Your Honor, I said slowly, I think I'm going to live in it. I think Isaiah and I are going to make a new home there, by the ocean. And I think I'm going to invite everyone who helped me to come visit whenever they want. Because I learned something these past few days. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who show up when blood lets you down. The courtroom erupted in applause. Judge Williams smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from her. That sounds like a fine plan, Mrs. Henderson. Court is adjourned. As everyone stood, Aisha made her way over to me. We stood face to face, this woman who'd been a dying child and was now my savior. Thank you, I whispered. Thank you doesn't even begin to cover it, but thank you. She pulled me into a hug. You told me once, when I was 7 years old and so scared of dying, that kindness is never wasted. You said that every act of love we put into the world comes back to us eventually. I never forgot that, Mrs. Henderson. This is just your kindness coming home. We cried together while the courtroom slowly emptied around us. Dorothy joined the hug, then Vanessa, then Raymond, until we were a circle of people who loved each other, who'd fought for each other, who'd refused to let cruelty win. When we finally pulled apart, Corey was still sitting at the defendant's table, watching us. He looked so lost, so alone. Ma, he said quietly, Can I talk to you? Just for a minute? Part of me wanted to say no, wanted to walk out and never look back. But I'd spent 72 years trying to be the kind of person who chose love over hate, grace over bitterness. I couldn't stop now. 1 minute, I said. He approached slowly, like he was afraid I might run. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know if I'll ever forgive myself. But I need you to know that I meant what I said in there. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making this up to you. You can't make it up, I said softly. You can't give me back the 3 years I spent alone, wondering what I did wrong. You can't give me back the security I felt having a retirement fund. You can't undo the damage. I know. But, I continued, you can be better. You can rebuild yourself into someone your son can be proud of. You can learn from this and never let anyone manipulate you like that again. You can do the work. I will. I promise I will. I looked at my son, really looked at him for the first time in years, saw past the man who'd betrayed me to the scared little boy who'd lost his father too young, saw the ways I might have failed him too, Might have held on too tight or not tight enough. Isaiah's going to need his father, I said finally. Not the man you've been these past 3 years. The man you used to be. The man you can still choose to become. So you work on yourself, Corey. You do the therapy. You do the community service. You learn what it really means to honor your family. And maybe someday we can find our way back to Sunday dinners. He broke down completely, sobbing like a child. I love you, Ma. I never stopped loving you. I know, baby. I know. I left him there and walked out of that courthouse into the bright November sunshine. Isaiah held my hand on one side. Aisha held my hand on the other. Behind us came Dorothy, Vanessa, Raymond, and what felt like an army of people who'd proven that love is stronger than betrayal. That evening, Dorothy helped me start packing my few belongings from the rental apartment. Isaiah ran around excited, talking about the beach and building sandcastles and seeing dolphins. How does it feel? Dorothy asked as we wrapped dishes in newspaper. Surreal, I admitted. Yesterday I had $265 to my name. Today I own a beach house worth $365,000, and I have people in my life I didn't even know cared about me. We always cared, Loretta. You just couldn't see it because you were so busy taking care of everyone else. I'm going to do better, I said. I'm going to let people help me. I'm going to ask for what I need. I'm going to stop shrinking myself to make others comfortable. Dorothy smiled. Now that sounds like liberation to me. 2 weeks later, Isaiah and I moved into the beach house. It was beautiful. 3 bedrooms, a wraparound porch, and floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the Gulf of Mexico. Every morning we'd wake up to the sound of waves and eat breakfast watching the pelicans dive for fish. Aisha came to visit that first weekend. She brought her mother, the woman I'd helped all those years ago. We sat on the porch and cried and laughed and made plans for the future. I'm starting a foundation, Aisha told me, for families dealing with pediatric cancer. I want to make sure no family struggles the way mine did, and I want you to be on the board. Me? I'm just a retired nurse. You're the woman who taught me that kindness changes everything, Aisha interrupted. I need your wisdom. We all do. People from County General came down in waves, former co-workers, doctors I'd trained, administrators who remembered me. We had barbecues on the beach. We played cards on the porch. We built the kind of community I'd always dreamed of. Vanessa and her family came for Christmas. Corey was allowed a supervised visit with Isaiah on Christmas Eve. He brought presents and apologies and looked healthier than he had in years. The therapy was working. He was working. Ma, he said as he was leaving, thank you for not giving up on me. Parents don't give up on their children, I said, even when their children give up on themselves. 3 months after the trial, I got a letter from Bianca in jail. She'd taken a plea deal, 5 years in prison, followed by supervised probation. The letter was 2 pages of justifications and excuses, ending with a half-hearted apology. I read it once, then threw it away. Some people aren't ready to take responsibility for their actions. Some people may never be ready. That wasn't my burden to carry anymore. On a warm April evening, I sat on my porch watching Isaiah build sandcastles with some kids from the neighborhood. The sun was setting over the water, painting everything gold and pink. My phone buzzed. A text from Dorothy asking if I wanted to go to the new church down the road on Sunday. I looked at the beach house, at the life I'd rebuilt from ashes. Thought about the $50,000 from my friends that I'd been able to pay back in full once the beach house funds came through. Thought about Aisha and her foundation. Thought about Corey slowly finding his way back to himself. Thought about Isaiah laughing and calling this place home. Sometimes betrayal breaks you. Sometimes it breaks you open, cracks you wide enough that light can finally get in, wide enough that you can see all the love that was there all along, just waiting for you to notice. I'd spent 3 years being robbed, of money, of dignity, of time with my grandson, but in the end, I'd gained something more valuable, a community that fought for me, a second chance at joy, and the knowledge that kindness is never, ever wasted. "Grandma," Isaiah called from the beach, "come see, I built you a castle." I stood up, my 72-year-old knees protesting a little, and walked down to see my grandson's creation. It was lopsided and half collapsed, but he looked at it like it was a masterpiece. "It's perfect," I told him, and I meant it. Everything was perfect. Finally, blessedly, perfectly imperfect, and mine. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.